they need to own it. They need to understand that, yeah, me as a leader and other leaders we have in the organization are going to dictate certain things, but not everything. They need to understand that there is some room for improvement and creativity. They are not doing this only for their leaders. They are doing this for the betterment of the community. And then that responsibleness or that sense of ownership is what really makes a difference within Unilogic.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we look at a direction for the company in creating and establishing a clear sense of direction and how that unifies people together. Our special guest today is the CEO of Unilogic Group. They were on the Inc. list last year, and they've got about 70 employees. Jonathan Ferrandiz-Sala, not a Spanish speaker natively, but John and I talk about, establishing this clear direction and why employees need a clear direction, what that really means across the organization, some of the core principles that go with it, how they interact with their employees, and some of the things they find most important. You'll be surprised by this. It's not just about profitability and money, even though that is the end result for many businesses, but it's about how they're working together. And I was really honored to have this conversation with John today and to share it with you. My name is Gene Hammett. I am an executive coach. I work with CEOs and their leadership teams to help them grow beyond what they believe is possible, to help them create continuous growth in their companies. I typically working with Inc. 5,000 level companies. So they're growing fast. They have a certain amount of chaos and challenge that they have to overcome. We also do leadership development, and that leadership development is turning managers into leaders. That's how we serve. If I could offer you one thing, here's what I would offer you today. Is a chance to get to know you and to really serve you and give you a clear indication of what's next for your company, and do it for absolutely free. And if you are a CEO of a company and you are interested in getting a leadership effectiveness evaluation, we work through 7 specific areas or dials, if you will, and measure you so that you can quantify it. And then we can qualify it through some conversations around what's really missing across your company. That's the first place I'd start with anyone. And I'd love to give that to you. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. And since you're listening to this, it's typically a $1,000 kind of program that I would charge for that. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, we're just trying this experiment here that you just mentioned that you heard it on the podcast, and it's absolutely for free. So just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call and ask for the leadership effectiveness evaluation and mention that you heard it on the podcast. And we'll be talking soon enough about your business and about your leadership and growth. Now, back to the interview with John. John, how are you?
Doing great, Gene. Yourself?
I am fantastic. I always love these interviews, and we're going to have a great conversation about direction within a company and why that's such an important piece. Tell us about your company, Unilogic Group.
Of course. Gene, our company started in 2016. We are a supply chain company based in Chicago. We have 5 different warehouses in Chicago, 1.2 million square feet. We provide all type of services related to warehousing, from transloading to e-commerce and final destination or final delivery. So we do B2B business, and of course anything that is related to the industry, like pick and pack, segregation, you name it.
Well, that's a huge, part of the world we live in now with, Amazon and, all the people getting things next day. What is the biggest, challenges you face right now as your company is continuing to grow?
Well, that's a great question. We have faced so many challenges in the last years, but one of them is the high demand from our clients. We have all type of clients, from almost direct consumers to freight forwarders who have their own clients, and we need to basically live according to their expectations. They have high expectations because it's an industry that requires a lot of velocity. Things are coming sometimes via airplane, and things need to be segregated, classified, ready to ship right away within 24 hours, sometimes even less than that. So that's the biggest challenge, I guess, to adapt and to be resilient to the necessities that our clients have.
Well, you didn't get here alone. One of the big things that probably allowed you guys to scale the way you are is your team. Tell me a little bit about how you look at the team that you've created.
Well, that's a very good question, and probably one of the most important ones, because the team that we have has to be very results oriented. People with experience in the industry, and that is exactly the reason why when we start with recruitment and training, I think it was Einstein who said, education is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think. And that's exactly what we want our people to do. They need to think through, understand what the needs are, and to put into practice. So again, if you think about the profile of the person or the people that we recruit, it's people with some experience in the industry, people who are easily trained and who understand that they need to be results oriented.
You had spoke with someone on our team when we do research and everyone that we put on to the show, and you had mentioned that creating a clear sense of direction within the company was an important piece to your overall success and making the Inc. list. What does that really mean for you, that clear sense of direction?
What I was referring to when I mentioned this is that clear sense of direction is going to instill a sense of ownership and belonging to the people that you are working with. So this is something big within Unilogic. When we recruit somebody, we share with them our business plan. We want them to know what our goals, targets, and expectations are. In that way, you have a more incentivized team working for you. So that's the kind of rapport that I build with our directors and upper management positions. We have a very open line of communication. We express what we need. They understand that those outcomes and KPIs and metrics are the lifeline of the company. That sense of direction that we give by creating the SOPs, all kind of processes that they are very much involved in, make them a very responsible, very responsive team. And they are results, self-driven employees. And that's exactly what we need. We need people who understand the importance of being proactive and do things in a way that the company will see results for.
Now, John just talked about ownership. Now, this is an area where I've done a lot of work. I was going to write a book in this area, and it probably will come out soon because there's 6 core principles of getting people to feel like owners. One of them is mission aligned, which probably self-explanatory. Another one is empowerment, which is people feel like they have a sense of control and agency to make decisions. They feel empowered. Another one is inclusion. They feel like they're included in ideas. They feel like they're included in decisions and that they're being heard. The fourth area inside this is transparency. If you don't have transparency, they feel like an outsider, but if they are transparent, this doesn't mean you have to share everything. There's a transparency line. I've worked with a lot of companies on establishing what this means. There's also a sense of growth, that they feel like they're growing. This is, they're getting the training, they're getting the support and the skills and the confidence, and they really feel like when they come to work that they're more valuable than they were last year, and that gives them a sense of ownership. And then finally, mindset, meaning it's a two-way acceptance of ownership and what that means. Those are just 6 elements. I give them to you, not because I feel like you can go there, but I've created other content that allows you to unpack this, and you can find it inside my podcast, or you can reach out to us. I'm happy to share it with you absolutely for free. I don't require you to log into anything, but just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. Happy to share that, more details on the 6 elements of ownership and the principles that help people feel like owners. Now back to John. A number of the interviews we've had here bring up this. And then one reason why I do these interviews with people like you, John, is because I look for these patterns, and they talk about ownership. But I think a lot of business owners don't get it, because I would imagine the way you describe it, you look at it as you want them to have a sense of like an entrepreneurial spirit. Is that fair to say?
That is absolutely correct. And in a way, our divisions and the people we work with, even when somebody is assigned to a specific project, it's a type of a franchise in itself. They need to own it. They need to understand that, yeah, me as a leader and other leaders we have in the organization are going to dictate certain things, but not everything. They need to understand that there is some room for improvement and creativity. They are not doing this only for their leaders. They are doing this for the betterment of the community. And then that responsibleness or that sense of ownership is what really makes a difference within Unilogic.
We got here talking about, establishing a clear sense of direction. You mentioned SOPs and KPIs, and, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that I'm not bringing up, but what is the heart of direction for your business?
The heart of direction for our business is basically allowing our people to brainstorm all together and to get to the conclusions that will make the company better. In reality, we do give them instructions about what to do and what not to do. But at the end of the day, we have a group of professionals taking decisions that they own and they see the good result of.
I know that you mentioned hiring experienced and I've worked with some logistic companies before and I get the value of experience, but are you also bringing in people and developing them and developing their skills in this area? Like hiring in younger people?
Definitely. From the very beginning, this was one of the challenges, right? You are a small company. You are trying to get fresh blood to the team, people that you can train or to do at your image in a way. So we definitely want to train people, and we want to make them understand the importance of be professionals within the industry we are in. So we have a combination of both people who have ton of experience. Some of them have 20 plus years of experience, and some people that have been trained internally and have learned with us as we went.
And so would you say it's a hybrid approach? You don't just, develop talent. You don't just hire these experienced people, but you have a mixed hybrid approach to creating the culture that works for you guys?
Definitely. And we think that is one of the keys for success. You want both things, people with some seniority, understanding the industry, the ins and outs, and people who want to grow and want to somehow be like those people or improve certain practices.
I want to switch gears a little bit, John. You have obviously been doing this for a while. You've come from a background of being a leader in other areas. What would you describe as your core leadership principle?
Well, talking about principles, and these are precisely the ones that I emphasize during the recruitment and training and onboarding process with our people. One of them is maintaining the self-confidence and self-esteem of others and maintain constructive relationships within the team. We want everybody, as I mentioned before, not to be a yes person, conformist in a way, right? We want to be a disruptor. We want them to create and improve even best practices, because best practices are there to be challenged. So that's exactly the type of environment and type of leader that we want, a person that is going to change things and make the place we're working in a better place in an overall.
There was something in there that I want to highlight because I think it was really interesting the way you picked that. You said self-confidence, and then you added the self-esteem of others. So I think a lot of people think about themselves, they think about the work, but they don't necessarily think about how they're engaging with others. Is that a common, approach to you guys being the collaborative culture that you have, is thinking about the self-esteem of others?
It is, as a matter of fact, a core approach, and one of the things that we emphasize on a regular basis. There is no success if we don't respect the self-esteem of others. And there is no way somebody's going to speak up and try to make things better if we are shutting them down all the time. No, that is not the approach in Unilogic. We want people to feel a respect. This is what we instill in our middle management positions for them to do the same thing with their teams, wherever they are.
Well, John mentioned the self-esteem of others. Now, this isn't something we hear often on the show. And so really, it took me a moment to really probe on this, but I want to add a little bit to that discussion. If you had a company where people aren't taking into account the self-esteem of others, it's not a really good place to work. You could probably agree with that. And so why not encourage people intentionally to think about the self-esteem of others? And, this is through respect and through honesty and through trust, but really thinking about that intentionally is a different aspect that most people don't think about. They have a lot of conversations about work and about work products and challenges and KPIs and profitabilities and all of these things. But what about the conversations about self-esteem of others and what gets in the way of that? And how do we improve that? Another way to put this is creating a psychological safe place to work, and where people are free to make decisions and offer up opinions without judgment. This is a place that I want to work, and probably your people do too. So if you want to improve that, just look at that. See, just have the discussion with your team. How do you improve the self-esteem of others across the organization? Now back to John. I've got to ask you, how do you actually make that happen? Like, how do you train a middle manager to help people understand the self-esteem of others and the importance of that?
That's a great question as well, because it is true that this is more something that we learned when we were probably when we were children, right? At a certain point in our lives is when that culture is somehow instilled in us, and if you don't learn it at a very early age, it's difficult to learn it later on. First, we have a program, a 5-week program that we conduct with all our middle management positions and directors, and this is a written program where we talk about these 6 basic principles in the company, being one of them the one about the self-esteem of others. As you mentioned before, we tie in the self-confidence with the self-esteem. After going through the program, which I do direct myself, then we are expecting them to do the same thing with their the people working for them in their teams, not going through the same program, but instilling the same principles. After that, we of course run reviews and appraisals every 6 months, and we analyze what they've been doing, how they have been performing when it comes to the light of those 6 principles. Depending on how they've been doing, we rate it, we put it in writing, and they are evaluated. And of course, their raises and their promotions internally are based directly on those 6 principles.
I don't want to confuse anything here, but and some people, I know there's a language barrier because you're from Spain and I'm learning Spanish, and we cannot do the rest of the interview in Spanish, no matter how much you want to. But you use the word principles, and sometimes I think of company core values. Is that interchangeable for you, or are they separate things in your organization?
It's interchangeable. We can say core values or principles.
Okay. I'm glad I asked these questions because I don't want to make assumptions, but what you're telling me, because I'm going back to where you said, I hire by these, we train them, we onboard people, we've got this program, we've got raises, and all of the things that tell me that living your values is a very important aspect of you creating the kind of company that gets success, grows, and really is a great place to work. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say, Jane, that's exactly what we have in mind. We want people to enjoy what they're doing, and that's a way for us to retain the human capital.
Hopefully those listening in here understand that, yes, work is important. And, I know you talked about the importance of being results oriented, but the way we get there isn't by stepping on the backs or the dreams of others, but building up the self-esteem and self-confidence of that is required with those results. When you are thinking about, the business moving forward, are there any things that you think of that you want to evolve into? Like there's things that you want to change and grow as the organization gets bigger and gets, has a bigger reach?
Well, there is something that I know I don't want to do without, which is this harmonious or healthy family business approach that we have internally. It is true that over the last 6 years, we have grown into a multi-million company in revenue a year. We have over 75 employees. We have over 35 as an average staffing members or so. In total, we have over 105, 110 employees as an average. And we still have that family-oriented feeling or approach. That's something I don't want to change. We want to continue growing into different markets, and probably within the United States and internationally into Mexico and probably Europe. But we don't want to change that family business approach, because we understand that that's the only way in which people will continue enjoying working for Unilogic.
Now, here's the hard question. As you have 70, the family approach can work, but I've also seen there's certain challenges when you cross 100, and certainly at 200, it's a little bit harder to treat everyone as family. You don't even get to meet everyone that might be hired and know them first names and know their kids' names and know what their stories are. How do you plan to keep that going as you grow?
It is true that that flavor may change and you will not have the same feeling as we continue growing. But my idea, as I mentioned before, is to create an organizational chart in which people, our middle management positions, will take that ownership in their hands and replicate the same thing. It comes to my mind, companies like, for example, Chick-fil-A, they have a very similar approach in that sense, right? It's very family, and they choose their owner operators in a way that will make that happen. I don't want to promote any specific companies, but that's what I've heard, that's what I've read, and I like that spirit. In a way, we want to choose the people that are going to be managing our different locations with our different employees to instill the same spirits into the people they are working with on a daily basis. Of course, I won't be able to be there present every day, but we don't want to lose that sense of family business.
I have grown up in Atlanta all my life, and my family actually is from Hapeville, which is where the very first Chick-fil-A was. So I've kind of, it's, I know it can ruffle some people's feathers, but I also know that it was just family for us to go down the road to the very first Chick-fil-A ever. It's called the Dwarf House, if you know anything about the details. But I learned something new about Chick-fil-A that I'd never known before. Most locations like this allow you to have more than one location, right? So an operator can have 2, 3, 4, 5 stores, but Chick-fil-A decided that we want you to be really focused and really create the sense of leadership and ownership in one store. So an owner operator gets one store. That's it.
Yep. You have to excel very much to get maybe one more. That's what I've read, but you're totally right. They want you to focus on one. And that's the kind of same business plan that we have for our growth.
Well, John, I appreciate you sharing with us today. My hope is that the audience tuning in learns a little bit about, what does it take to grow a fast growing company, learn some new things, and really has appreciates the wisdom that you've shared today.
So thank you so much, Jen. It's been a pleasure.
Wow, what a great interview. I love the energy and clarity that he brings and making that distinction about principles and values. I love the fact that they're living them. And it really is an incredible episode to talk about, establishing a clear sense of direction. Employees don't have ownership if they don't know where you're going. You want to make sure that they have that clarity so that they can take ownership, which is beyond responsibility for their work, and they can help you drive things forward. All of this fits together in creating the kind of company that you really want to have. My name is Gene. If I can help you in any way through leadership coaching, through leadership development, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to help you and serve you and your company. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, the courage. We'll see you next time.